Sleeper Wire, the only fantasy football radio show with more than a dozen multi-time, multi-league, multi-year champions. Listen to the Sleeper Wire show every Friday, 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern on Dash Talk.
All right, Max, can you say James Conner like 3 times?
James Conner. James Conner. James Conner.
Perfect. Thank you.
I'm ready for all today. You are the pain.
Welcome to the Sleeper Wire Show for September 8th, 2017. First, a moment of silence for the end of draft season, preseason, Metal Mock Mondays.
Man,
and now,
those are some good times, guys.
Moment of silence, moment of silence, moment of silence. Okay, and now a moment of air horn for the start of the regular season. It is.
Yeah, buddy.
It is. There you go. It is the beginning of the regular season. My name is Producer Steve, and with me on the show today, oh boy, it's a full house. We got Dirty Jobs Mike, I got Max, and Prophet Husein. They're all in here today. We've got a ton to talk about and a lot of opinions to get out. So this is what we're going to do. I'm going to ask you guys if you're good. You say yes or no, and then we'll continue. Prophet Hus, you good?
Yes, sir.
Dirty Jobs, you good?
I'm good.
Max, you good?
No, I don't have a nickname.
Let's get this show started right now with a little NFL news. All right, first quick news item. The Giants, Odell Beckham Jr., they're saying he has an uphill battle to be on the field at all Sunday versus the Cowboys. And even if he plays, they're saying he won't be 100%. I'm going to go directly to Prophet Hus because he's a Giants fan. What do we make of this, man? I mean, he's being drafted, or he has been drafted in the first round almost in every draft. Big part of people's teams. Are you rolling him out there if he's not 100%?
I'm definitely going to roll him out there if he's not 100%. He could still give me, 15 points. I think he'll still get targeted in the red zone. He's not going to be out there for all the snaps. But I think if they leave it up to Odell, he's going to play. We mentioned this last week, if Odell was going to play week 1. And, you leave it up to this guy. I mean, he's going to play. He's not going to be at 100%. He's got that high ankle sprain. You're going to see a little bit more of a rain. You're going to, they've been working on that rapport, Eli and Marshall. So maybe you'll see more red zone targets there. They still got Sterling Shepard. Don't be surprised if you see a lot of Sterling Shepard and Evan Ingram.
I was going to say, if Sterling Shepard probably gets your interest up a little bit. What about Brandon Marshall, though? Any idea about him, Max? I know you kind of... I think you do like Brandon Marshall's abilities, but do you like him a little bit more now that maybe Odell is not 100%?
I like Brandon Marshall a lot, but the issue is Odell at 80% is better than most receivers at 100.
Right.
So if I find out Odell's not playing, Brandon Marshall shoots straight up the charts for me. But, I mean, I still view Marshall as a wide receiver 3, like high-end 3, low-end 2, because Odell's there and Sterling Shepard's there. But like I said, if Odell's gone, Marshall's a high-end 2. So it really depends on the news we get going into Sunday.
Right, so we've got a couple days here. Mike, I believe that you were an Ingram guy.
I love Evan Ingram this year, and as a matter of fact, the more I hear about Odell getting sat or maybe not being 100%, the more and more I get on board with Evan Ingram, because I don't really trust Brandon Marshall in that system quite yet. Right. He's a brand new face to it. Sterling Shepard, he just really had a preseason to me that just wasn't that impressive. It was actually kind of scary.
He was banged up a little bit, so luckily he was on the field because it was reported that he might miss several weeks. So now he's out there, I think, he's something to watch.
What I was watching with him, I mean, even with wide open passes, I mean, dinged up or not, you're an NFL or an NFL wide receiver. Act like it, catch that football, and he just wasn't catching the football. So I don't know. Evan Ingram to me takes a really big step up.
So
yeah, I like Evan Ingram a lot.
So if Ingram is out there on the waivers, maybe Sterling Shepard's out there on the waivers. You guys are leaning a little bit more towards adding which one?
I'm going to go with Ingram.
I too am going with Ingram.
Well, I'm going to take Shep here.
I'm just saying if Shep's on your waiver wire, you probably have better receivers on your team already. Tight ends are kind of a dime a dozen unless you have one of the top 5.
That's true.
And improvement's an improvement.
Good point.
All right. All right, let's go on to the Patriots. They're actually playing tonight, so this isn't so much this week, but more in the future. They put Malcolm Mitchell on IR. He's going to miss at least 8 weeks. Personally, to me, it doesn't mean a lot because I'm still having trouble predicting who's going to have a good week if you're not named Gronkowski. But this might boost some value. Some people are saying it's Chris Hogan. Other people are saying this is more a good omen for the James White owners. Let's start with Mike Dirty Jobs on this one. Who do you like in terms of any value, if at all, getting raised up with this Malcolm Mitchell news?
I really like Chris Hogan. He really showed his stuff at the end of last year, and in the Super Bowl, he was just, a force to be reckoned with. And I think he really took a lot of the pressure off of Julian Edelman, and that's what kind of gave him the win, if you ask me. So I really feel like without Malcolm Mitchell being there, I think he's gonna be the guy. I think he's the guy to own on that team right now. Yeah,
I'd have to agree with Mike here. I just think that I was probably one of those guys. I have Mitchell on a lot of teams, so I had to dump him in a lot of leagues today. It's because I thought that Mitchell was going to play that Julian Edelman role, and now it's a depth chart, so it doesn't mean much. Chris Hogan's actually behind Brandon Cooks, and now they have Philip Dorsett starting where Julian Edelman was, and but again, it's a depth chart. It doesn't mean much. Danny Amendola is going to see some more targets. This is good for James White. He's their pass catching back. Dion Lewis is good for him. So yeah, you're going to see more of these guys, and then obviously you feel a lot better about Cooks. You feel a lot better about Gronkowski.
That's the thing, though. You just rattled off like 6 names, and it could have been 7 who are getting passes now.
It's interesting. It's interesting the way they set themselves up like that. Like, why would you have Philip Dorsett starting
right
on your depth chart?
Max, you've been a big James White guy, and actually, I listened to you. I picked him off waivers in a league where I dropped Jonathan Williams after he got cut from Buffalo. So do you have any other opinion on this in terms of the pass-catching running backs in New England?
Until Dion Lewis proves different, James White, in my opinion, is the guy there. They just keep making moves, and I don't know what they're going to do. Because Dorsett, he's a good receiver. That's the issue. He's a good receiver. We expected great things for him in Indy, and it didn't really pan out. And I don't know if that's his fault or if that's the system's fault. But then you have Cooks, who's great, Amendola, who's serviceable, Hogan, who's good. I need to see what happens week 1 because I have no idea.
Yeah, it's hard.
Well, they already said they were going to use Amendola sparingly.
Well, it's like Brady came out.
Injury history.
Brady came out and said, I think Amendola is going to pick up the slack for.
I did hear that on the radio.
And then you have everyone saying Hogan because honestly, Hogan is a great talent.
Right.
And now they do Dorsett, and you're like, what are you doing? Stop making this so hard for me. Yeah. But at the same time, this is the Patriots because as a head coach, who are you preparing for? You know what I mean?
Right.
If you're going against the Pats, they're going to load them. They're going to just tell you whatever they feel like telling you, and you're not going to know until Sunday. But besides Gronk and Cooks, I'm most confident in James White.
Yeah, I think you're right. Until this situation a week or 2 goes by and we maybe can glean some information to figure out what is going on. I think you hit the nail on the head when you said they're going to game plan for different opponents differently. So you may have to look even deeper and look at defensive rankings and if a team is particularly good against the run or particularly weak against pass catching backs, and maybe those are the weeks that you plug in James White for a flex play or something like that. But it's going to be real hard to predict. We got some bad weather coming Florida way, so we want to wish all our listeners and fans in the Florida area. We want to make sure all you guys are safe. But the Dolphins-Bucks game will be played in Week 11 instead of this weekend. So
that's right.
there's a lot of skill players that this affects. A lot of first and second round draft picks are going to be missing the first week of fantasy here. Mike Evans and Ajayi owners, along with those people that put Winston as their first quarterback, and possibly people that have Cutler in a 2-quarterback league. So people are freaking out a little bit about these teams, mostly because they're going to be playing 16 straight games. Does this really matter? And if it does, who does it affect the most?
I think it affects Doug Martin the most. His suspension just got longer for people who drafted him. If you think about it, like it's another week he's going to be gone. And I know they're treating it like a bye week, but this early in the season, it's kind of rough. I know I have a lot of shares of Parker this year. I like him a lot. When Jay Cutler, like I said it a million times, compared him to Alshon Jeffrey, that was like a neon sign to me that Jay Cutler is going to target this man like mad, and he's going to be the star there. And I was planning on starting Parker week 1 at my flex because I'm in a super flex league, and I had Parker and Eli Manning. And with Odell being out, I didn't really want to start Eli. So I was like, I'll take a flyer on Parker and see if he just goes off. So now I'm in a bind because Parker can't play, and I think he's poised to be like a number 1 because they're just going to sling the ball like mad.
These two teams, albeit it's a blow, I guess, for they're not going to play this week. It's not bad because they get to sit back and see what has changed in the offseason. Regarding defenses and how you're reading them, because a lot of people like to go into the season and they like to read last year's defenses, and there's a lot of missing pieces. There's a lot of added pieces. There's just no way to do that, and you just kind of have to let the season play out. They have that advantage. They have 1 week at least to have that advantage, and see how it plays out. What do you think about Mike?
I think it kind of gives them a little bit of a competitive edge. And honestly, I've always felt like the bye week, it just seems like a lot of teams lose their momentum. They get out of step with what they were doing, and they kind of got to go back to square one when they come back off that bye week. And a lot of times it takes them a long time to catch back up. So,
well, you got the flip side of that is you have a lot of teams that a lot of things are going wrong, and they anticipated things to go right, and they have that bye week to say, hey, we're let's get this right. Have a little bit of extra time to get it right. So that's where I think the flip side is for those bye week guys. It's tough. I wouldn't freak out. I wouldn't go away trading away all my players. I wouldn't go trading Mike Evans. I wouldn't go trading. I think what they're going to end up doing is they have, especially for the running backs, as you alluded to, I think they'll just switch it up. I mean, if anything, maybe, this hurts, but maybe they sit Ajayi 1 week if they need to give him some rest. Maybe he doesn't see as many touches that week. So this is something that I would anticipate rather than it being such a big hindrance and now you got to trade all your players.
That's a really good point. Keep an eye on those skilled players, maybe, starting week 8 and on to see. They might get a slightly diminished workload just to preserve them if these teams are in a playoff position come to the end of the season. Let's talk real quick about the Seahawks. I'll go straight to Max on this one because he's a Seahawks fan. Eddie Lacy apparently is ready for the full load. And I don't know why Pete Carroll is always talking this way. It's like very double entendre all the time with him.
Right.
Rawls apparently is maybe questionable, and I don't know if I can trust what Pete Carroll says half the time. So fantasy implications for this week and beyond. Let's just stick with like the first couple weeks here. Eddie Lacy, what do you say, Max?
I actually like Eddie Lacy. It's a system that's realistically kind of built for him. He's I don't want to compare him to Marshawn Lynch because he's not Lynch, and very few running backs will ever be Lynch-esque again. But he is the same mold. He's the big guy who's going to run between the tackles. He's going to run you over. He can catch if he needs to. And if he is in his weight parameters, which honestly, he could have been gaining weight because he didn't like being at Green Bay anymore. That's a team that's more like the Patriots, where they would rather pass out of the backfield than hand it off. Maybe he wants that heavy workload, and he's willing to work for it in Seattle. And if that's the case, and the Pete Carroll has confidence in him, I project him as an RB1. And I say that as long as Rawls is out. Once Rawls is out, it's going to be a committee, and it's going to be, I think, similar to the Geo Hill committee we saw 2 years ago, where they're going to be both productive, but it's going to be determinant on your league whether you want the touchdowns or the catches of whether you want Eddie Lacy or Rawls in your team. I expect good things for him. Pete Carroll seemed to be a very good judge of running backs over the last few years. So I mean, if Pete Carroll says he's 100% ready for a full load and Rawls is out this week, I would have no issue starting him at my flex or even my RB2.
Yeah, I think the main knock I hear about Lacey is the offensive line is crap. The offensive line is no good. They haven't done anything to fix it, blah, blah, blah. But, Mike, you have, I think, a pretty good nose for offensive line and running back type of stuff. Are you as high on Lacey as Max is on this one?
I actually am, and I don't know if you guys have ever spent much time in the Green Bay area, but I went to Milwaukee for a wedding once, and I was there for like 5 days. And I gained like 25 pounds because everything is covered in cheese.
Oh,
and
man.
those people drink like you would not believe. So you got Eddie Lacy out of there. He looks thinner, looks a lot more dynamic. He looks like Eddie Lacy of the old days. So I'm really excited. Although the offensive line, they really didn't do a lot of things to make a lot of changes there. And so it is still questionable because Eddie Lacy isn't very good without a good line.
Can I interject real quick?
Yeah.
About the O-line. I know you, like me and you both talked O-lines before. The issue with Seattle not doing anything is they actually have a very good O-line, but no one stays healthy.
Right. Yeah, that's always the
So there's
issue.
only so many moves you can make because the players they do have are good. They just get hurt. You know what I mean? It's one of those things where it's kind of like KC with Jamal Charles for so many years, where it's like they have an elite running back, but he's going to get hurt. And that's kind of what's going on with their line.
Maybe
Not to that
saying
extent,
not
but-
good isn't accurate. Maybe saying not deep. Maybe they're
Right,
not
yeah.
deep.
Oh,
Yeah,
100%. I agree
Yeah.
with that 100%.
That's
Yeah.
fair. And I will say about this Lacey hype, I think it's too much hype already because Thomas Rawls has practiced all week. So I think sometimes when you see these headlines, we like to remember what we remember, you know, and if we have Lacey and we wanted to start him, we're going to throw him in our starting lineup, but we feel a little bit good about him or, you know, feel a little better about him. But Thomas Rawls did practice all week.
But
with that ankle
you have to watch
issue.
the injury report because last year there was several weeks where Thomas Rawls practiced all week and he didn't play, or he played five
100%.
snaps.
100%. I agree with you, but what I'm saying is I feel like him practicing all week is kind of got lost in, Eddie Lacy can get a full load, he can get a full plate. You know, if Rawls is not out there. Now, Rawls is the starter. He is the starter. So if he had a full, you know, if he practiced in full this week and someone asked him, Pete Carroll, we don't know what was the question. At least I don't have it in front of me or the video. It could have asked him, hey, do you think, and I think this is actually the context of it, if I'm not mistaken. Hey, what do you think about Eddie Lacy getting 20 to 25 carries if Rawls is out? Yep, he can handle it. Full load. He could do a full load. Obviously, he can. He's a starting running back that has done it in the past, been a top 10 guy. But I think we're just forgetting that Rawls is the starter and Rawls has practiced all week. So as Max did allude, just pay attention to the injury report.
A couple other guys you want to check your injury reports for. Jamal Charles was held out of practice on Thursday. Jamison Crowder added to the Redskins injury report on Thursday with a hip issue. John Ross returned to the Bengals. Limited practice on Thursday. All right, so that is it for the news for the moment. We're about to get into the matchups in just a second, but first, a little news segment we have. Don't know how often we'll do it, but it's called Suspension Implications. Ooh, scary boo.
Scary.
All right, so this Suspension Implications is a brief chat, particularly about players that are facing suspensions or have suspensions and the implications that it brings to your fantasy team. So, obviously, the first one on the list today, Ezekiel Elliott. I'm just going to throw the name out there and let you guys chew on this, what we know, what we don't know, and how it affects fantasy owners of Ezekiel Elliott.
Well, it's interesting because we've been waiting all week for information, and a lot of the writings have been on the wall. And it's, a lot of people are still worried about what's going on. It's as of yesterday, we knew that Zeke might not play week 2. So this news right now that he may get a temporary a TRO, a temporary reinstatement. he may get that to happen for him. And that's huge for him, because now he's going to play for you not only week 1, but week 2. And that, it opens it up. He got the 6-game suspension. That was really the worst news. If he got a 3-game suspension, he would have said yes. He would have been suspended week 1, week 2, week 3, and we all would have been super excited as Zeke fans, or even McFadden fans. You would have known what to do with these guys. Now I'm dropping my shares of McFadden if I'm not trading them, because they're not worth much. You're holding on to McFadden, hoping that Zeke gets suspended halfway into the season right now, because with that TRO, he's going to be playing from week 2 through 7 until they figure this whole thing out. And they may not figure it out until the end of the season. Now, they may not figure it out to the end of the season. They could also figure it out mid-season, and now you're without them, for your playoffs or halfway of the season. So it's still a lot to watch. I think the biggest implications as far as waivers or just guys on your team, you got McFadden on your team. You probably got to find something to do with them. Alfred Morris, something else to do with them. Try to trade him to the Zeke owner. If not, you're going to have to probably drop him unless you want to hold him. You're going to handicap your bench spot for maybe 10 weeks or so, because it may not get resolved till week 10.
Yeah, that's my biggest fear right now. Is I took a ton of shares, literally every single league I'm in. I own Ezekiel Elliott, and I did that with confidence that if he gets suspended, I'm going to have him for the second half push, and I'm going to have him for my playoff run. And in the playoffs is where he's going to be the literal game changer for me. I was lucky enough to lock down enough good running backs where it's, if he doesn't play, most leagues I have like a combination of maybe like Lamar Miller and like Todd Gurley or something along those lines, where it's like, yeah, they're not Ezekiel Elliott, but they're still good. Or like I have LaShawn McCoy and Miller in a bunch of leagues actually. My issue is, if he plays now, that's great, and it's awesome, and it's going to help me. If he gets suspended week 10, my playoffs are done. Yeah. Well, they're not really done, but it's like my idea for my very awesome late playoff run is going to be drastically hindered, and it's almost like if this once I found out that they weren't going to reduce the suspension at all, I was in my mind I was like, just serve it, just get it out of the way, just get it done now. Yeah. Because even as if he's on the Cowboys, the actual NFL team, if they have a winning record, then he leaves, and they start falling and faltering, and he's not being able to be reinstated till the second playoff game, that could really hurt the team. So it's one of those things where he's fighting to save his legacy, and he still wants to get the thing reduced. It's not going to. Serve your time. Don't hurt your team. Serve your time.
Yeah, Harold Henderson already handed it out. He has to uphold this 6-game suspension. The temporary restraining order is just buying him some time. And now, fantasy owners are hoping that he plays all year. It sounds like you were just hoping that they shut him down at least in the beginning of the season. And I think that is what most fantasy owners want it. But at the same time, if you can go out there and get McFadden for cheap, because look, I own McFadden in a lot of leagues, pretty much almost everyone. And I drafted him maybe like 7th or 8th, so I wasted a pick on him, I feel like. But at the same time, those owners, if they're feeling like me, I'm willing to cut bait for if Brandon Coleman, turns out to be a stud or something like that. He did look good in camp. So I'm willing to take that route. I'm willing to drop him. So if you can go out there and get him for nothing, McFadden, and just have him stashing on your bench, or just pick him up off of waivers, because, but what I'm saying is go out there and get McFadden. He's probably going to be a championship winner for you, him or Alfred Morris, if Zeke does not play all season.
I was just sitting there thinking about that, and Ezekiel Elliott, he's a guy you're not going to drop, obviously. You picked him up. Hopefully you picked up McFadden so you can wrangle through the nightmare as it goes through. But what I'm actually thinking might happen is that this might not even affect him this whole entire year, and that's what I'm kind of counting on. But I didn't actually invest into him a lot because I draft late in most of my leagues. So this news was all kind of already hanging over him, and I just do not go for risk that early.
I'll tell you one thing, and this is kind of devious, but I picked up McFadden in as many leagues as I could where I didn't have Zeke, and this news to me is great because now I can leverage it for that Zeke owner and say, look, man, the bottom could drop out any given week. We don't know what's going to happen.
I'm not taking your trade, Steve.
Take that McFadden trade. It's here today. It could be gone tomorrow. I mean, it's a really frustrating situation right now, and it's there's nothing you can do about it. As a fantasy owner, you kind of just either got to weather the storm, or like Hus was mentioning, you either cut bait or you try to consolidate, the handcuffs and stuff like that, or you see what you can get. Hell, maybe you trade Ezekiel Elliott. Maybe you can sell it that he could play the whole season. Nobody really knows, so it's a lot of thinking to do. Have a beer, have a cigar, and figure it out. The other guy that's, and we kind of talked about him earlier, Doug Martin, obviously going to miss a couple games this year, but with this, early bye week, I guess we could say, missing the first week, just not playing. Is that good for him or bad for him?
With Doug, he's healthy. So it sucks that, they're pushing this back because, for those owners that wanted him, week 3, I mean, it's good news if you were looking to, if you felt like somehow, the Buccaneers can exploit some sort of Miami defenses. Sure, I mean, at least he's going to have that opportunity. So the good news is he still gets to play Miami, just not week 1. And he's going to come back to you week 5 at this point. So
he's such a beast when he comes back. But I would have drafted him, or I probably wouldn't have drafted him had I known I was going to have to sit there and watch him on my bench for 4 weeks. 3 weeks seemed tolerable. I guess 4 is that number for me.
Yeah, I mean, that's a quarter of your season. If you're playing in leagues that go up to the 13th week, or actually the end of 12 and your playoffs start in 13, like some I'm in, your bye weeks, your wild card, it starts in week 13. Yeah, that's a quarter of your season. So nobody wants that. Hopefully you got him later than the 5th, and I know at one point he was going in the 4th round.
With him out, and with people maybe possibly scrambling for running back depth at this point, I think he makes an interesting trade target. If you've got the if you've got the stock to get him, he makes a real interesting target because it's an easy sell. You're going to miss him the first week, and you're still going to get the suspension, and it's all back-to-back. Like, you're not going to start – you're not going to be able to play him for the first, like you said, quarter of your season probably. But are there any guys on running back on waivers that interest you, besides Jaquiz, obviously, that could possibly be flyers for these rough months?
I'm going to say James White. He's probably the only running back I could think that could still be on flyers right now, or on waiver wire that could be a flyer for you. Depending on how it goes. LeGarrette Blount I like, and or Smallwood is also poised for Philly, but I need to see how that kind of works out because they're being very secretive there. CJ Prosise could emerge as the lead back for Seattle. Rawls has an injury history. Eddie Lacy has a food history. So, I mean, those two possibilities. And then John Connor. If Le'Veon Bell gets hurt, he's a number 1 running back. No questions asked.
John Connor from the Terminator?
Yes, the Terminator.
The leader of the Resistance? Just
James Connor. You know what? It'd be cool if his name was John Connor because he could save the damn world. You could look at Andre Ellington. Now that they cut Chris Johnson, he's the clear number 2.
Kerwin. They make Kerwin. Even though I agree with you. I agree with you, though. I think
Kerwin's run style.
I don't like Kerwin.
He's a hard runner. But I think push come to shove, their defense doesn't scare me like it used to. Ellington would take over because he's more of a passing down kind of back.
I think Ellington is way better.
He's a good running back, but it's the thing. At this point, you're looking for handcuffs.
Yeah,
you're looking for people that might have a chance at breaking out, or might have you could grab Yeldon and hope that Fournette goes down. You could grab whoever the Bills' new backup is.
What do you think, Mike?
I like Jonathan Williams this year. Now that he's a Bronco.
Now that he's a Bronco. So you're fading D'Angelo Henderson, or?
I am. I think he's going to move up that depth chart real fast. He's a power runner. That's a power running football program. C.J. Anderson is the best preseason running back in football. but one of the worst regular season running backs in football. So I think he'll lose his job fairly quickly, and maybe to Jamal Charles. I cannot count on that guy's health. So I think we got a solid number 3 guy right there, and he might need to go to work this Sunday.
Well, they put him on a practice squad. They paid him $500,000. So, I mean, it's crazy for a practice squad guy. I'm pretty sure he's getting a lot of dirty looks over there. I still like D'Angelo Henderson a little bit more just because of the preseason he had, the camp he had. He was a star. But I also like Matt Breida. I like other guys that are going to be on waivers. I got Deion Lewis actually in waivers in one of my leagues.
Theo Riddick.
Riddick will not be on waivers. Joe Banyard is he's the backup for McCoy. So he's a guy. Jalen Richard was just named the number 2 running back, so he's another back that you might want to pick up. CJ Spiller was cut then released. Was released and re-signed, so maybe they just didn't want to pay him that price tag. They don't have a ton of backs.
Do we know Charkandrick West's ownership?
It's got to be low. But I think I like that. Yeah. He's going to have a role. He's going to have a role.
But he'd also take over. And honestly, before Ware kind of turned into Spencer Ware, West was the guy, and he was very productive.
Right, yeah, we were talking about that on a previous episode about like why people were even so high on Ware anyway, because West was the guy. West was better than Ware at some points, and you guys all know I'm a super huge Kareem Hunt fan. I've been praising him since March, but at the same time with Spencer Ware, I don't know, like the fact that you had to pay such like a second round price for him.
But basically what you're looking for right now are just running backs to get hurt, and you hope you have the backup.
Yeah.
That's what it sounds really shitty, but that's kind of how it is.
That's a strategy. All right, so that is it for suspension implication. I hope we helped you out. We are going to look at these week 1 games right now, give you real quick takes on the players you got to start and you might consider sitting. All right, so week 1 is upon us. We are going to run through the Sunday and Monday games and just give you a quick take on each matchup, who we think you absolutely must start, and guys you might consider sitting based on the matchup, based on other things. So we'll start with the New York Jets visiting the Buffalo Bills. Let's start with Husein on this one. Who you starting, who you sitting?
Starting Zay. I'm starting Clay. I'm going to sit Matthews out on this one, even though he's going to be supposedly healthy. I'm going to sit Robbie Anderson on this one as well. If hopefully you don't have to start him. He's a deep, flyer guy. I do like Robbie Anderson, but they just added some additions, so we don't really know who the favorite target will be for the old guy there. The old QB they got there. Other than that, it's Jets and it's the Bills. This is 2 terrible teams.
I've actually seen a lot of questions, Dirty Jobs. I've seen a lot of questions about Bilal Powell or Rob Kelly in the flex. Do you like Bilal Powell in this matchup?
I do like Powell a lot. Yeah. I think he's tuned for a big game this weekend.
All right, Max, we'll start with you on this next game. Atlanta at Chicago. What do you like in this one? Who don't you like in this one?
I like Atlanta.
Okay.
Basically, anyone on Atlanta, I like. But on the Bears, I'm only a fan of Howard this week.
Yeah.
Kevin White, I can't trust because the guy's made of glass. So it's like he could be productive. The chances are he's not going to be. They're going to need to throw a lot. And that's going to be a known thing. So, if you need to start Kevin White, go for it because I understand.
All right, so let me point one guy out that I've seen a lot of questions people asking. Tevin Coleman. I've seen him in a question, Coleman or James White, Coleman or Danny Woodhead, Coleman or this guy or that guy. Max, give me a quick take on Tevin Coleman's value, specifically towards these other running backs.
All right, I actually discussed this on SleeperBot somewhat with a user, and my take is Danny Woodhead is, I think I said the only girl at the bar, to steal a joke from Matthew Berry. He's the only guy that I can trust in the Ravens backfield, so I like him a lot. Tevin Coleman clearly has competition with Freeman. This week, I would go Woodhead over Coleman because I don't see the Falcons being down. and needing to pass a lot. So I don't see Tevin Coleman necessarily getting a lot of work. I think it's going to be a better week for Freeman. I think Coleman will still be productive, just not those like 15 to 20 point weeks we got sometimes last year. But if I see Atlanta playing Green Bay, like that's a game where I think Coleman will be really productive.
Right.
Because that's going to be a high scoring game. That's what Coleman's made for.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, let's use Danny Woodhead as the segue to the Baltimore-Cincinnati game. Dirty Jobs, I know you're a Danny Woodhead fan, but tell me about the Cincinnati backfield. A lot of people asking, should I start Mixon this week? Should I start Jeremy Hill? What should I do with this backfield? Tell me what you think.
I think I'm going to try to avoid most of that backfield. The one guy that I would start in the Cincinnati backfield would be Jeremy Hill. He is Mr. Consistent on that team somehow. I think Mixon's a great long-term value. I don't really think that he's going to get too much action this weekend, especially against the solid Baltimore front. That Baltimore defense is no joke. And although it is at home for Cincinnati, I don't like anybody else. But if I did have to start a running back from Cincinnati, I would start Jeremy Hill this weekend.
All right. Usual suspects I expect for Baltimore are starting. Let's move on to the other half of that division. The Pittsburgh Steelers visit the Cleveland Browns. I don't think anyone's questioning what Steelers they should start. Maybe some questions with the Browns, though. Wide receiver especially. Husein, who are we starting in Cleveland? Who are we sitting in Cleveland?
Oh, you're going to start Carter Coleman. He's going to get targeted a ton. Deshaun Kaiser is the starter. He seems to build some rapport, not a bunch because he still overthrows him a ton. But he's built some rapport. I think he's going to find they're going to have a great marriage. It's going to be a beautiful honeymoon. You're going to want to be there. It's going to be dolphins making noises and all types of amazing things happening. But right now, I think Britt, you're going to want to stay away from Britt this week. Unless you have to start him. If you have to start him as a flex, you're in a deep league, deep roster, sure. But I would stay away from Britt if you can.
Let's see.
I don't agree with you. I like Kenny Britt a lot.
I would have liked Kenny Britt if Deshaun Kaiser wasn't there, but Deshaun Kaiser seems to love Corey Coleman. And
yeah, but you can love Corey Coleman, but at game time you got to throw to the guy who's open, and Kenny Britt on the Rams always got open. And I feel like he's the guy that you're going to throw to the veteran who knows what he's doing, who knows how to make plays happen when you're down and out, and they're going to be down and out. So I would be confident starting either of their receivers this week because the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to put on a show. And they're going to come out there and they're going to drop 1,000,000 points, and their defense isn't that great.
All right.
I would not start Duke Johnson. I just have to go on record and say that. I would not start Duke Johnson.
I would not want to, but I mean, like, hey, these are not guys that you're drafting early.
I'd start Kenny Britt over Duke Johnson.
All day, every day.
I would not.
The Duke Johnson train left a while ago, and you just forgot to get off.
Wake me up, guys.
Yeah, he's passed out. Now, we'll see what happens this week. All right, Arizona visits Detroit. I don't think anyone's got too many questions about who they're going to start here. Maybe a little bit in the Arizona wide receiver, Mike Dirty Jobs. John Brown feeling good to you this week, or Jerron Brown? Anybody interesting there besides the usual suspects?
I think it's going to be the Larry Fitzgerald, David Johnson show on the Arizona side of things. I don't think you're going to see much production. John Brown, maybe he comes back. Maybe this is the week he beats his sickle cell and he actually can play football again and show us the talented guy that he really is, because he is fast and he gets open, and I don't know. I've got to see it before I can do anything about him.
He did catch 2 touchdowns, in their last, not the preseason 4, preseason 3 game, which was supposed to be their dress rehearsal. And even though Jerron Brown is their number 2 receiver, they probably did that just off of the guy worked his ass off.
Well, Jerron his production's been the best on their team next to Fitzgerald. And I feel like I almost feel bad for the kid because when we discuss the Cardinals and their offense in fantasy, everyone's like John Brown. If short of the usual suspects, John Brown. And it's like, there's this fella named Jerron Brown who is doing the work that everyone thinks John Brown's going to do. And he's doing it every week, and no one gives him any shine.
Well, he's healthy. And John
he's healthy, and he makes the catches.
Right.
He makes the catches, though.
Yeah, he
That's
does.
the issue, because when John Brown was healthy last year, people forget, he was healthy and he had production. He didn't do much. Now, I got the argument, I think it was Nick who made the argument with me, that, well, we haven't seen the production from John Brown. You want to see John Brown's production? Look at Tyler Lockett. They're essentially the same receiver with relatively equal, maybe, all right, slightly better. I like Tyler Lockett more. Essentially
The talent, sure.
Essentially the same receiver with essentially the same quality of quarterback, and Tyler Lockett has all the time in the world and hasn't done much with it. I don't think, speed doesn't win you everything. And I don't know if he has that X factor that actually pushes him over the edge to make him this receiver worthy of wasting showtime every single week. I like Jerron.
All right, let me real quick before we go on to the next game, because I've seen these names mentioned in the same questions as these guys, John Brown and Jerron Brown. Garcon, Thielen, Ginn. All these guys are questions at the flex. Which of those do you really like at the flex this week?
I like Jerome Brown out of that group the best. I don't like Pierre Garcon very much just because I haven't seen San Francisco do anything yet. I like Thielen second. I
like Garcon than Thielen. I just think that, Garcon's going to get targeted a ton. He led the league, and I know it's a couple of years ago when, no one may not want to hear about it, but it's still a number that's true. He did lead the league when he was in targets when he was with Shanny. So it's not going to happen right away. It's not like these things automatic. It's like boom. It's true.
I hear this argument for Garcon all the time, and don't get me wrong, I do think Shanahan's an amazing coach. I just don't buy the whole Hoyer and Bears ish, as crude as it is to say. And I know everyone loves him, and I feel crazy because I apparently am the only one who doesn't. But I just don't like that. I have to agree with Mike on this one.
That you'd pick Jerron Brown over Pierre Garcon?
This week, yeah. I need to see what the 49ers are going to do.
All right, that's good. Let's move on to this next game, divisional matchup, Jacksonville at Houston. I have a feeling this is going to be a lot of defense and two sputtering offenses. I think you got to start certain guys, obviously Lamar Miller, D-Hop, and on the Jacksonville side, I guess this is the first chance to start Fournette and see what he does. Any guys that you think might be good sleepers here, maybe have a chance to break out in this game, or is this one you kind of just want to stay away from in terms of fantasy?
I don't really like going against the Texans at home with any team. So I would definitely try to avoid all Jaguars that I possibly could. I think DeAndre Hopkins. I think we'll see the return of DeAndre Hopkins on Sunday. That's one guy that I'm really excited about.
All right, so
Hopkins, Miller, safest for me. Hopkins, Miller, and Lee. Hopkins, Miller, and Marquise Lee. I think Marquise Lee is going to surprise some people. Alan Hearns is banged up. Marquise Lee had a really good end of his year. You were able to start him pretty much every week, and he didn't let you down. So I think he continues that on. Bortles is still going to be the quarterback, so that helps.
All right, let's get on. This is a big one. The return of beast mode. Oakland visits Tennessee. Mode. This game is almost, I think, going to be the opposite of the last game. I think this is going to be a straight-up shootout. Lots of points scored in this one. Max, I know you like this Oakland team. You like David Carr a lot this year. Anybody that you're particularly uninterested in starting, or is this a full speed ahead for both these teams?
I'm really uninterested in David Carr. He's been retired for a few years. But I do like Derek Carr.
Derek Carr, there you go. See, you can do it, I can do it. We all mess up sometimes.
Oh, yeah. I got you. They're brothers. What doesn't interest me is Oakland's receivers who aren't named Cooper or Crabtree, because it's always someone different getting thrown in the mix. But besides that, all their Lynch, I love. Cooper, I love. Crabtree, I love. Carr, I obviously love. On the Tennessee side, I think Decker should be great. Rashad Matthews could be great. Mariota will have a good game. DeMarco Murray's a beast, and honestly, Oakland's defense is kind of laughable.
Yeah, I've been seeing Crabtree a lot in questions as well. A lot of people weighing Crabtree for flex versus guys like Diggs. Tyreek Hill, Fitzgerald. I mean, is he a standout in
the
there?
issue is Crabtree isn't the number one. Tyreek Hill is, and so is Diggs. So
I mean, Crabtree's the number one on his team as far as targets and touchdowns every year.
Yeah, but Amari Cooper is the better talent, and I feel like could emerge as the number one anytime.
No, yeah, he can. But, I mean, he still has to prove it, though.
All right, on to the next one. The Philadelphia Eagles visit the Washington Redskins. This one, the questions I'm seeing are, is it a good week to start LeGarrette Blount? Is it a good week to start Rob Kelly? These are flex questions. Other than that, Crowder has been in the mix with questions a little bit, but you got to watch his injury situation in Philadelphia. I don't think there's a lot of questions on who you're starting there. But so let's really just look at the two running backs, Blount and Kelly. Are they both startable in the flex, or are they more valuable or less valuable this week?
I think they're both startable in the flex. I think they're both very valuable too. Yeah, I think they're going to have a good game.
Let me put it in the context of a question that I've seen. All right, so say you've got Blount, Kelly, Jeremy Hill, Ingram, and Dalvin Cook. These are all guys that are kind of flex questions. So out of those,
Cook.
You saying Cook?
Cook easy.
Cook this week?
Easily.
All right.
Yeah, Cook blows those guys away, especially this week against New Orleans.
All right.
I don't know if Cook blows him away, but Cook is the only one who has guaranteed role.
You don't think Ingram's going to have a guaranteed role this week?
No.
I think he does. Cook is the only guy. I mean, who's he going to lose his job to?
Latavius Murray was a starter last year on a different
that's
team.
Still trying to get better. That still hasn't probably. Maybe he learns the playbook, but he hasn't really spent much time with his guys. I mean,
he was.
I like Latavius Murray. It's not saying that I don't like him. I'm just saying this week against
Latavius Murray. If you ever listen to this, I love hates you.
I don't. I was, dude. Last year we were both probably the biggest Latavius guys. You know, that was like, look, keep him on your team. Don't trade him away. Don't do this. And he still ended up a top 12 back.
Well, because the Raiders realized that he was their best running back in their field.
Look at that line, though. Look at the difference of the offensive lines of those two teams. You're talking about the Oakland Raiders and the Minnesota Vikings.
The Vikings have a great O-line.
No, not at all.
Yeah, they do. No, the Vikings O-line has always been a good their O-line's been a good running O-line. They've always had a good line for running backs.
Oh, we're going to get
not necessarily quarterbacks, but when you talk about run blocking versus pass blocking, they've always been good for run blocking.
We're gonna get to that game. We're gonna get to that game. We got Indianapolis, Los Angeles Rams first, and if Andrew Luck does not play, does that mean you're sitting guys like Dante Moncrief? No. Are you bumping up Frank Gore? Are you bumping up the tight end?
No, I'm not doing anything to this game. I think that Scott Tolzien has been the starter for some time now. They knew it, and when he first took over. As much as everyone wants to say, sit T.Y., he's going to be terrible. I mean, Tolzien's been the starter. So ignore that. It's not like it's out of nowhere. They've known for months now how Luck is not ready to play the game. And you ask the owner, they say it's in his head. They say he's healthy enough to go out there. So I think that by now, Tolzien's going to target whoever he needs to target. You know, it's a great offense. Chuds has a great playbook, and I think that they're going to be fine.
Dude, that's scary that you mentioned it's in his head. Because you remember we had was it Will Poole that said that when players come back from injury, they gotta. That's the hardest thing is to overcome that fear that limb is weak and it's not fully healed and it's going to break again. That's startling to me. I guess the biggest question on the Rams, are you comfortable starting Sammy Watkins this week?
Yeah, I like that.
If he's going to do it, he can do it against Indianapolis, right? Vontae Davis is out.
Absolutely, exactly what I'm thinking. If you're going to do it against anybody, it's going to be them. And what a time to showcase him. And you'd hate to have him on your bench if he just goes off.
Right.
He's healthy. You start.
I think it's going to be a great Todd Gurley week too.
Yeah, I agree. I think so too. But let's do Seattle, Green Bay. I really haven't seen a lot of questions about this. We talked a lot about Eddie Lacy and Thomas Rawls already. I think a lot of people are questioning whether Devontae Adams gets to start here. I think everybody's comfortable with Nelson, Jordy starting, but I think the questions are, is Adams a good start against Seattle? Max, what do you think on this one?
Yeah, Aaron Rodgers kind of always figures it out, which pisses me off pretty bad, but I wouldn't be like over the world confident in him, but as a wide receiver 3, I wouldn't mind starting him. I mean, like as a flex, like I need him to go out there, yeah. Because you probably drafted him high enough that he is going to be your wide receiver 3 or your flex.
Right.
So,
all right. This guy on the Carolina Panthers who plays San Francisco 49ers this week is in a lot of questions. Christian McCaffrey. I've seen him compared with questions with Dalvin Cook. I've seen him compared with questions with Leonard Fournette. So what do you guys think about McCaffrey this week? Good start or wait a week to see what he does?
I'd start him RB2. That's where I have him. He's going to be very involved in that offense, and it's against the 49ers. So this is the time you start all your Panthers.
Yeah, a lot of people were asking about Kelvin Benjamin too. I think you got to start him this week as well. The opportunity is just too good. Anybody on San Francisco that could make a sneaky play if you needed, a flyer?
I mean, maybe Goodwin. He's the second receiver there. They just signed him.
I like Goodwin.
He's across
He already has decent rapport. Guy's fast as hell. I do like him for those like flex position kind of.
Yeah, you're in a deep league. I mean, I guess you're not starting them in anything on a 14 team. You're not starting these guys unless you just had a terrible draft. You just did terrible, and unless
you had like Mike Evans and Devontae Parker.
Yeah,
right,
exactly.
Something like that. Yeah,
you just have to. All right, final game, Sunday Night Football. God, I hope they have a better intro music this year. I'm tired of it. The G-Men versus the Dallas Cowboys. We talked about this already at length. I don't think there's any surprises here. I feel like Cole Beasley is going to be a really good start this week.
I love Beasley. I've always loved Beasley. At one point, I think last year, Lucas and I got into a big fight because I said Beasley's has a better job in the offense than Des Bryant does, and he said I was crazy. And I didn't mean that Des is, Beasley's as good of a player, obviously, just in the offense. And I do think that it's another week where, I don't know, I'd say Beasley might outscore Des this week. He's just going to get all that underhand stuff.
All right. Mike, Max, I'm going to give you this next one. This is Monday Night Football. We get a double feature Monday Night Football. We get to watch football from 7 until probably like 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning on Monday night, which is great. But yes. Max and Mike, who is going to be the highest scoring player, not quarterback, in this New Orleans-Minnesota game?
I think it's a long shot, right? But I think it's going to be Kyle Rudolph. I think we're going to see a lot of Kyle Rudolph on Monday Night Football. I don't really know that we have a whole lot of work outside with the Minnesota Vikings yet, but as far as, like, you got Thielen, you've got Diggs, those guys will probably do pretty good, but I think once they get to the red zone, it's going to be the Kyle Rudolph show, and he gets a lot of good deep passes, too, so that's who I'm calling for it.
All right, Max, your thoughts real quick?
Jerick McKinnon.
What?
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think
Brandon
New Orleans is going to beat up on Minnesota, and Minnesota's going to need a pass, and Jerick McKinnon is an amazing receiving back, and they're going to turn to him quick when Dalvin Cook can't keep up. And Dalvin Cook's a better running back, but as a pass catching back, I think Jerick McKinnon's bread and butter, and I feel like they're going to need to be playing from behind a lot.
Wow. Okay. So that's like a very high risk upside play. I mean, if you start him, you think?
Don't do it. Don't do it. Like, don't start him. But there's a very good chance it'll happen.
Just watch for him. Just watch and see. All right. Last game of the week, the LA Chargers at the Denver Broncos. Let's start with Max on this one. Everybody give me your take on the Chargers. Are you starting the wide receivers? Are you scared at all about starting Keenan Allen, Tyrell Williams, Benjamin, any of these guys with this defense they face in Denver at home?
I'm cool with starting any of them. Denver really hasn't done much to improve their defense in my eyes. And the Chargers, although they're not a sexy team, they're fast as hell. Everyone is so fast. So I don't imagine Denver's going to be in a cover 3, cover 2 defense for most of the night, running a lot of zone because they just can't keep up man-to-man. And you're going to watch Phillip Rivers pick apart this defense because Phillip Rivers is a very accomplished quarterback. So I'm pretty confident in most of their receivers for PPR. I'm a little hesitant on Melvin Gordon, but I do think he'll be fine in the end, with red zone work and all that. But no, I got no issues with starting any Chargers this week.
All right, Dirty Jobs, defend your defense. That's your team. Defend them.
If it was anybody but San Diego going to Denver, I would defend. I would just start going off right here. But San Diego has an uncanny knack of going to Denver and just kicking the crap out of them. And I always get to see Phillip Rivers in a stupid cowboy hat talking about how much he loves the Mile High City. So I would start every San Diego Charger myself just because history dictates that he'll probably go in there and have a monster game. He plays Denver tougher than he plays anybody else in the NFL.
All right, Prophet Hoos, you had the last word on this game.
Yeah, I mean, Keenan Allen has had success in the past, even though it's years ago. I mean, but he did have he went off against Denver. I believe, what was it, 2014 or something? Even though it's 2014, but I think he had I want to say 6 receptions, 80 yards, 2 touchdowns. So he's shifty. He's going to move all over the place. Don't be surprised if they target him a ton, and he does get some work. I think he's a safe guy to. I don't want to say safe because it is Denver. I feel safer with him, obviously, than Keenan. Than Tyrell.
All right. That is it for the preview of the weeks. We'll come back to this next week where we do a review of the games and see how we did. Hopefully we helped you out. Final segment of the show, 60 seconds. We didn't do it quick. It's called the Dirty Jobs Player of the Week. All right, so this is a new segment. We let Dirty Jobs Mike tell us 1 or maybe 2 players he likes this week. The only caveat is that these players got to be grimy. They got to be hardworking and not exactly pretty in your lineup. So these are the guys that people will laugh at you for starting, but they will muck it out and deliver point value this weekend. Dirty Jobs, who is your Dirty Jobs Player of the Week?
So it's going to be a day late on this, but my guy right now is Dion Lewis. And the reason is because he's still available on waiver wires. He's a New England Patriot. He's one of the best New England Patriots. He was injured last year. James White came in, took his job. Well, now he's just got to get those elbows dirty. He's got to get them knees dirty. He's got to go out there and get some work done. He's going to go out there. He's going to take that job back. It might not even be next week, but I bet by week 3 you start seeing a little bit of Dion Lewis, and then it's going to be heavier presence. So I'm saying pick this guy up now because he's available on 90% of most waiver wires in most of the leagues I've looked at. Go grab this guy because he's going to do some work for you this year.
All right, that's the Dirty Jobs Player of the Week. You guys got any issues with that? I didn't think
Definitely
so.
not. I mean, he's
you can
starting
say
right
that.
back.
I'm a James White fan, but
Well, that is a huge show, and we're finished, so that is it for the show today. Thank you so much for listening, and if you have any other questions, you want to reach us, get to our rankings, listen to podcasts, submit questions to us through our website. Go to SleeperWire.com right now. Also, please help us support our cause. If you'd make a small donation to Rob's GoFundMe page, GoFundMe/RobJR. This is our buddy. He's battling chronic Lyme disease. Any little bit you can donate helps us out to get to his goal. I want to thank our guys, Dirty Jobs Mike, Prophet Hoos, Max, no nickname. You can reach them on the SleeperBot and Fantasy Life app at Dirty Jobs, at MaxSW, at Prophet Hoos. You can also find us on Twitter at SleeperWire Show, at Hoos the Prophet, at Dr. Kane21. That's Mike. Thanks again, guys, for being on the show, and thank you all for listening. Good luck in week 1.
The champions from the Sleeper Wire Fantasy Football Show will help you win your fantasy football championship. Sleeper Wire, Friday 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern. Sleeper Wire on Dash Talk.